Hello and welcome back. For anyone that's new here, I'm Rachel. I live in a van, work remotely, and last year we bought some land in Scotland. We're getting married right here on our land next year, so I'm currently on a mission to turn it into our dream wedding venue. And there's a few things that we need to undertake for this. We're converting a horse box into a bar. I'm trying to work out what flowers I can grow here in the not so sunny Scottish Highlands for my bouquet, and we're doing the catering and everything else ourselves too. So in the run up to July next year, I'll be bringing you with me for all of the weird and wonderful wedding prep, as well as just a glimpse into our daily lives while we're at it. A few fun things are going on this week, so before I jump into showing you my new garden bed, let's take a look at the elderflower champagne that we made in last week's video. So I've come out this morning, not yet fully dressed, because I really want to talk to you about the elderflower champagne that we made in last week's video. So since I showed you how I actually go about making the champagne, it was left for around 5 days and then popped into bottles like this. It will now spend around a week, possibly slightly longer, in bottles until I actually put it in the fridge and then it's ready to drink. This stage is the most hazardous and I'm like flinching away, wishing I put on safety glasses, because this is the point where it can explode. It continues to ferment inside the bottles and basically that pressure builds up and up. I'm currently burping these bottles twice a day to try and avoid anything exploding. And I've got about 9 bottles that I'm doing it with. So I'm going to show you what that burping process looks like. So it basically gives it a nice fizz when you open it up. And again, I've got some spillage. This is so much livelier than the last batch that I did. Here we go, that one's gonna be fine. Then you let the fizz just calm down and pop it back on again. Oops, that's a lively one. This little corner of our land is the area that I have claimed for my little outdoor garden. We've got the little arch behind me here, which is growing the roses, and I've built a few little garden beds. Built is a bit generous. I mean, I've laid down cardboard and sprinkled soil on top of them. But things are growing well, and this is really part of my experiment to see what I can actually grow for my bouquet. Ultimately, because this bit of the land gets 5 hours of direct sunlight a day and then some partial sun in the shade, so it isn't really the best conditions for cut flowers to be grown here, but I'm curious to see what I can actually do. Before I could build the new bed today, Cam needed to come and save me, because I was completely incapable at moving the rock that was in the way. Turns out, to make me feel better, so was he, but together we did manage to get it shifted. I also needed to get some of the larger weeds out the way. Our land is almost constantly inundated with stinger nettles and bracken, and so far the technique to get rid of it is just relentlessly mowing and pulling out the weeds. In a bit of a spontaneous decision, I decided to use the rock hole to plant out my rose bush. The other 2 roses have been doing really well directly in the soil, and it will give this area the sweetest of smells, because these David Austin roses are sincerely some of the best things my nose has ever witnessed. The rose that's done the best so far was planted into the ground with a mix of compost, chicken fertiliser pellets and perlite, so I followed that same method here and gave her a good water in. I'm hopeful that by getting the rose into the ground now, while we're still in June, it will give it the rest of the summer to grow those really strong root systems that will ultimately allow it to produce masses of blooms next year. The roses that I have bought are all reblooming varieties, which means that when you deadhead them or cut them back, they'll continue to flower all summer long, often right up until that first frost. I'm actually already really blown away with how much they've been flowering, especially as I have already been cutting them back this year to make my dried petal confetti with them. About a week or two ago, we bought another ton bag of compost and I just had not put that to use yet. So I decided to get another bed on the ground and get this little project underway. I have had some perennials growing in seed trays that were just about at the stage when they're ready to go in the ground. So this new bed was going to be home to things like yarrow and oxeye daisies and other native British wildflowers that I personally am really, really fond of. In an ideal world, I'd be using cardboard for this job, but we simply do not have enough for the whole thing, so instead I'm using this recycled craft paper to cover the base of the bed. I personally really like this no-dig method. Firstly, because it is no-dig, so you can get a new garden bed without needing to put your back out. But it's also really useful for us just because of how much weed residue seems to be in our soil. When I dig and turn the soil, all of the weeds inevitably come up, but they just don't seem to do that as much when you cover it with a blanket of cardboard or craft paper first. The weakness of no dig though is that it can get expensive because of course you need to buy compost, especially as we don't have any that will be ready until around next year. So for anyone who doesn't know, my fiance is a carpenter and he gave me some very specific instructions on how I should be using a string line to keep my bed straight. I was very tempted to not follow his advice. However, as the main intention behind all of this is our wedding, I felt like I possibly shouldn't risk his wrath or the premature divorce by not following his instructions. In true amateur YouTuber style, this is when my camera battery started to run out without me noticing, so you don't get to see the half-assed job I did that day. However, I'm now recording this on a Friday afternoon and the sun is out, so it's time to go and relax. My lust for that relaxing afternoon was slightly tapered when I went outside and saw Cam, who had been slogging away all morning, still working on clearing the rocks and the mud from this area of our land. Did I still go and practice yoga? Yes. But did I feel significantly more bad about it? Also yes. When your life is ruled by a desk job or a laptop, like mine tends to be, yoga is a really nice way to just be able to check in with your spine and your neck and wring out everything negative and just feel like a normal human after a week. This is, of course, Scotland, so that sunny afternoon quickly turned into a rainy one, which left us with very little motivation to do anything apart from sit and rest. And I don't think either of us are going to be too sad about that. So I've seen we've also got a bit of a wind warning coming today. So before we nip out to go to Inverness, I'm gonna just do something to try and secure my sunflowers a little bit more. They're growing beautifully. I've got 2 canes in the ground here and here. And a couple of weeks ago, or maybe even just a week ago, I put this bottom bit of string in just to make sure that they had something to support the stems, because they're just getting quite big. What is that? It looks like a ladybird, but I don't think it's a ladybird. If that's still there in a moment, I'll show you. So what I'm going to do now is exactly the same thing, a little bit higher up. Perfect length of string. Oh my gosh, that's so satisfying. So I've not done it too tight because ultimately if the stems do move a bit in the wind, it encourages the plant to grow really thick, strong stems, which is something that I want anyway. So enough to basically just mean that when there is a big gust of wind, they've got something to rest against rather than just snap in half. That is what I'm after. I learnt my lesson quite early on in the season because one of my sunflowers that was in the corner here that got most of the wind that comes through really suffered a sad fate. We mourn him to this day. Right, where was that? There he is. Let me show you. All right, lessons learned. A quick Google makes it seem like she's a sunflower beetle. And they're actually a pest. So we don't want them on our sunflowers. Just gonna check to make sure there's no more. We then drove to Inverness. We have a few things we needed to get done in town, like Cam needed to nip to Screwfix and I went to the garden centre. So other than a bit of shaky footage on the way in, I don't really have much to show you. But how nice is this drive? So we took a trip into Inverness today and I picked up this absolutely gorgeous hydrangea. It's called the Runaway Bride. And she's got the loveliest little ruffle petals. And it seems like she grows really like profusely as well. Seems that she can get up to about 1 metre high, around 1 metre wide. And I just think if I plant her in one of our pots now, she's gonna look gorgeous by the time it comes around to the wedding next year. She won't be as big as her max size, but the foliage is just so pretty. So she'll be fully in bloom by the time of the wedding. And I'm just the type of person who's going to fall for every single marketing gimmick from brides under the sun until this time next year. So to help me with that nasty habit, please do leave a comment, like the video, share it with someone you think might enjoy my journey, because this channel goes a small way to paying back some of the wedding prep that we're doing. I just want to thank you again for spending this little bit of time with me this week. I absolutely love documenting this journey, and it's even more fun to have you along with me. So I'll see you on the next one. Bye.